What is up, guys? Clinta here. So, bit of a different style of video today, since we did get the announcement for a brand new Ultra Platinum equipment. We're going to be getting it at this week's reset, so I thought might as well go over the most likely picks in my opinion, as well as what they might need to dominate in the current meta. As you can tell from the thumbnail, I do think these four are the most likely picks between the two Ultra Fusions, Ultra Gogeta Blue as well as Ultra Super Vegito, and then some secondary picks based on the Part 3 theme, which was Namek Saga, Ultra Super Saiyan Goku as well as Ultra Scouter Vegeta. Now, I do think, since the reveal is tied to the Dragon Ball information tomorrow, that the fusions are more likely than the free-to-play Ultras. It doesn't mean that, we couldn't get the free-to-play equips, but I do think it's less likely. So, let's talk about the fusions first. Now, between Ultra Gogeta Blue and Ultra Super Vegito, it's a tough choice, but I do think Ultra Super Vegito is more likely to get the equip. Now, I know we need a really strong purple in the current meta. Purples aren't in a great spot, especially with Evo Vegeta easily being the worst LF or Ultra from the 7th anniversary. But there's a few reasons I think Ultra Super Vegito is more likely. Firstly, being Vegito and Anniversary. The two just go together. We've had a huge precedent for Vegito and Anniversary, and we haven't got a Vegito yet, so that's a pretty big link. The second reason being that, of course, Ultra Super Vegito did release before UGB. Now, timeline doesn't matter a whole lot. We got Ultra hit before in Part 1, so again, not a big reason, but definitely contributes. And finally, it's going to be a lot easier to buff a yellow unit rather than a purple unit in the current meta. We have two incredible yellow snipers, the new Ultra Namek Goku as well as Ultra Majin Vegeta, who's still a menace, and trying to make a purple viable in the current meta is going to be a tall task. So for those reasons, I do think Ultra Super Vegito is more likely. So let's talk about him first and then move on to UGB. For Ultra Super Vegito, I actually did make a concept recently. We can pop that up here. As you can see, it has all 4 slots. For slot 1, basic stats, I went with 30% base health, 70% to the base stats. Now, Ultra Hit did get 30% HP, but he only got 50% stats. The reason I gave Vegito more is because he did release quite a bit earlier, so I do think those stats are a bit more viable. But I could see them go with the 50%. Mostly because Ultra Super Vegito has that absurd Majin Buu Saga equip, the Defiant Gohan. Gives a ton of stats as well, so we gotta consider that as well. As for slot 2, damage inflicted and damage guard, I do think he needs quite a bit of it. Went with 170% to damage inflicted. I think that's the minimum he needs to get up to modern levels of damage inflicted. Units nowadays just have way too much, and he doesn't have a lot in his kit, to be honest. So 170% there, and then for the damage guard, 100%. He definitely needs that at bare minimum. I think he gets a baseline of 50% and then up to 70% damage guard, but he's gonna need to get up to about 170%, especially when units like Kaioken are around. As for the slot 3, believe it or not, because of how old he is, he does not get key, cards, or cover null on entry. So he's gonna need all of that. Give him 50 key, draws 1 card if he has 3 or fewer, as well as 5 counts of cover null. Keep in mind, any buffs on these Ultra equips or equips in general are uncancelable, so 5 counts uncancelable cover null I think is a pretty realistic choice. The rest of this slot 3, I tried to link it a bit more to his counter to make that stronger, since it's one of his core mechanics. So when the counter activates, destroys 2 cards and draws 1 each of a blue card as well as a green card. Now, if you guys do remember, this is pretty similar to the main ability of Evo Vegeta. Destroying 2 cards, getting a green as well as a blue, kind of allows you to go with multiple options in the fight. Either you can continue the combo with the green or just go for damage with the blue. And I think it's a pretty strong choice, works pretty well with this counter, and also adding in 5 counts of Protect Hand, so those cards can't just be destroyed easily. Now, this last part I do think is quite unlikely, but I think it'd make him feel so much better as a unit. Counter, now comboable with a green, blue, or ultimate arts. Yeah, I do not think this is a likely option they're going to go with. More so a Zenkai type buff if they were going to do it. But I think it would be a great choice because you can't really combo off the counter. It does a good amount of damage, so it's even more unlikely because of that, and it's going to be doing even more damage now, but you know, maybe they decide to go with that. Coming to the slot for the infamous 7-star restricted slot, mostly push the defensive ability on this because I do want him to ideally still do most of his damage even at 5 stars, so here it's going to be mostly trying to deal with Kaioken, Ultra Cell, or even Ultra Hit. When hit by an enemy, Arts destroys 2 cards, very similar to Ultra Hit's thing, pretty much the exact same thing. And finally, some defensive type neutral, attribute downgrade, and abnormal condition nullification when he gets hit as well. I think this is a pretty good choice just to allow him to combat the big scary red units and maybe just live a bit longer while maybe trying to get a counterattack in, go type neutral with a green, perhaps getting the kill on one of those red units. Those would reset on switch, ideally, and that pretty much wraps it up for this equip. I do think this would make him quite dominant, maybe even top 10, but let me know if you guys want to see any more with his equip if he does get it, or do you think I went a little too far? Anyways, let's move on to UGB. So with UGB, he's going to need a lot. And by a lot, I mean type neutral, charge rate, disrupt, the whole works. He's going to be facing Ultra Namek Goku, Ultra Majin Vegeta, Kale Caulifla, even the full power Frieza that got a buff recently, the LF one. So let's get started. He's going to need type neutral. Off the bat, I do think 5 counts, maybe even 10 counts, they're usually not so generous, but at least 5 counts of uncancelable type neutral on entry has to be an aspect of his equip. As for the stats, I think you could give him something pretty similar to what we gave USV, maybe a little less since he did release later than USV. So I think the type neutral will be sufficient if it's at 5 counts, as long as they give him more charge rate. Now, usually it takes 3 cards to get his first gauge proc, and after that it takes like 5 cards to get his second and third gauge procs, but I do think that's a little slow at the moment, so I'd say 50% charge rate is a good option as well, just to get the gauge procced at 2 cards on his initial swap in and 4 cards for the other consecutive gauge procs. Another key aspect he's going to need is disrupt. Something similar to what we gave Ultra Super Vegito could work, destroying cards or giving him type neutral, but maybe more so focused on the type neutral because you do want to get hit a bit to get the gauge up. So I think those are the 3 major fields that need to be addressed, along with the stats, damage inflicted, and damage guard. Now they could also toss on more utility options just to make him, better well-rounded. Since UGB is a unit that gets much stronger after 60 counts, I do think working around a defeated battle member would make a lot of sense. So proccing that gauge with a defeated battle member maybe could give him more green cards. His green cards are extremely strong, banish recovery type neutrals, so having a source of more of those would be great. Maybe even give him a second ultimate with the defeated battle member, that's another great choice they could go with. And the final utility option, if they really wanted to target Ultra Full Power Frieza, is giving him some kind of uncancelable endurance null. Now I don't think this is as likely because he does get it on Rush as well as Ultimate, but if they really wanted to help him snipe Frieza, it's a possible choice. So I do think all of that would make UGB viable, maybe even dominant, but let me know your thoughts if you think he needs even more than that. So with the more likely options, the fusions out the way, we can talk about the free-to-play Ultras a bit, but honestly, I don't think they're going to get equips. Their kits are so primitive that I think they're probably best off saving any kind of buffs for those units to Ultra Zenkais, if they're ever going to get to it. Because if they do equips for these free-to-play Ultras, they're going to be essays. They're going to need a ton of utility as well as absurd numbers. Not only the base stats, but they're going to need 200 plus, maybe even 250 plus damage inflicted, and 150 plus to damage guard. So while I do think there's still a chance it could happen, mostly because of the Part 3 theme, I do think they're less likely picks. Now, there's also the small chance that they could completely throw us off and drop something like Ultra Kid Buu's Plat equip, but again, not as likely. I do think the ones we have discussed are the most likely, but let me know which one you'd like to see the most. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys for the Platinum Equip Showcase. Peace!